Hey everybody, and welcome to TYT Nation Live. I'm with you. I am Jeff Waldorf. I'm here with you today. Got some fantastic stories. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Yesterday, I just want to do a little programming note that yesterday we had a few tech fails. And so yesterday's show ended up not being saved or posted or anything like that. So I'm actually going to do one of the stories over again. And I'm actually going to do it a little bit differently than I did it yesterday. So that should be a lot of fun. And I've got some news stories for you today. A couple of Fox News fails. I've got the Pope, new stuff about the Pope. And it's really fantastic because the Pope is an interesting character. He's a really interesting character. And he's actually living up to the spirit of Jesus, which to me, it's amazing. It's amazing to me, but you're going to really like the Pope story. And like I said, story from yesterday about how much Congress works compared to you. You'll definitely want to hear that. But first, we want to start with some Fox News dumbfuckery. I love Fox News dumbfuckery. It's going to be great. So, let's get started. Boom. Or should I say, boomerang. So, Fox News did a segment earlier today about the entitlement nation. Now, they've got this segment where they complain about, all the free stuff people are getting and how they're not getting free stuff. Well, this time they decided they wanted to pick on millennials. So they ran this segment, and I want to show you a couple of clips from that segment. But first, I want a little bit of context. See, they're going to talk a little bit about youth unemployment and why millennials are moving back in with their parents. So first, I want to get to this graphic. Check this out. This is really hilarious. So I want to stop right there because look at that graphic right there. The hand, I'm here to take your stuff. It's like a zombie movie. I mean, they actually designed it to, I don't know, they designed it to, I think, to like scare people or something like that. Like the hand breaking out of America to come steal your shit. It's kind of amazing. Like, if you were somebody from another country and didn't know about what Fox News was, you would think that that's satire. Like, you'd be like, what is this? This has got to be comedy, right? That's so over the top. Like, entitlement nation. Yeah, here's a stretching hand out to take your stuff. Like, what the hell? Anyway, enough about the graphic itself. I actually want to get into what they were talking about. Now, Peter Johnson actually, he brings on somebody named Katie Pavlich. Now, she's, of course, a writer at townhall.com, and they're going to discuss a little bit about why millennials are moving back with their parents.
21.6 million young adults between the ages of 18 to 31, the so-called millennials, are living with their parents. That's more than 30% of the entire millennial population in the United States. Is the United States becoming the land of adult children? And are the president's policies to blame for that? Let's ask Katie Pavlich. Has America become the land of man children in the land of Obama?
We're definitely getting there.
We're definitely getting there. We're apparently now the land of man children, according to Fox News. Now, like I said, Peter Johnson brought Katie Pavlich on to talk about this issue. So, what do you think she's gonna say? Well, do you think she's gonna mention the lack of jobs? She very well could. There are, of course, 3 job seekers for every 1 open job here in America. So maybe she'll mention that. And you know what? She could also blame Obama for it, because we've had very meager job growth under the Obama administration. So if Fox News wanted to spin that angle, they could. So what about student loan debt? Student loan debt, of course, makes it really hard to be able to afford a place when you've got just a mountain of debt. When you've got $50,000 to pay off for your student loans, you can't exactly go out and buy a house. Nor can you really afford to rent a place depending on how much you borrowed. So she's going to mention that. Oh, another thing to throw in, of course, about the student loan debt is according to the National Center for Education Statistics, the average tuition over the last 30 years has actually increased by 124%. 124% increase in the amount of tuition. So, yeah, when tuition goes up, in order to go to school, you have to borrow more. And a lot of millennials have. So, is she going to mention that? No, of course not. This is Fox News you're talking about. Of course they're not going to mention that. You know what they're going to mention? The fact that millennials are lazy. You don't believe me? Check out this clip.
Dependent on their parents and dependent on big government, because the last thing they want is for young people to go out in the real world and realize how much things actually cost, how many taxes they're paying, and what it takes to be independent.
But what is the interest, the specific interest they have in making sure that young people don't know what it's like in the real world, that are comforted and sheltered by the government dole, by dollars, by checks, by benefits? Why are they doing that? Is the Democratic Party interested in increasing its registration?
It's registration, and we all know that young people typically vote for Democrats until they actually get out in the real world and start pulling a paycheck. You know, Obamacare is a perfect example of why the land of the adult children is happening. So, for example, you had President Obama going out and saying kids can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26. And last time I checked, we weren't exactly kids or children at the age of 26. Many people are homeowners. World War II was won by people ages 18 to 26. By the time you're 18, you can sign up to go fight overseas. By the age of 21, you can drink alcohol. And yet, all of a sudden now, we're children.
Oh, okay, that's the problem. So millennials are children, and they're being treated like children by the big government. They're comforted and sheltered by the government dole, as Peter Johnson points out. Now, also notice in there, and this kind of stuck out to me as well, is that they said that, well, Democrats, see, young people vote Democrat until they get out into the real world. Well, they vote Democrat because Democrats like to give them free stuff. And as soon as they get out in the world, they're like, oh my God, this stuff isn't free. I'm going to vote. I'm going to be a good little conservative. When that's actually not true at all. There's actually nothing there to back up her point. She's just talking out of her ass. But, hey, I mean, okay, so we want to talk about maybe if some of these young people really strike it rich. That's a different story. Because when you strike it rich, you're more likely, not in all cases, but you're more likely to be like, hey, I want to lower my taxes. Well, if you want to lower your taxes, vote for Republicans. That's kind of what it is. But if you actually want to help out your fellow man, you will most likely vote Democrat. And if you like education, if you like science, if you like women, you'll probably vote Democrat. I'm just saying. Now, like I said, they're trying to say that Democrats are trying to use stuff like Obamacare to buy votes. So a law that forces you to go and buy private health insurance is somehow a handout. How is being forced to buy your own insurance a handout? That's what I don't understand. How can you spin this? Just the type of mental gymnastics, the type of brain pretzeling that you have to do. You literally have to tie your brain up in a pretzel just to be able to understand what they're talking about. Because they make absolutely zero sense. Now, and it's kind of funny, she also mentioned the tax angle. Well, you know, that the young people, they're going to vote Democrat until they get out into the world and realize how much taxes they have to pay. So which is it, Fox News? Do people pay too much taxes or don't they pay enough? I seem to remember a few Fox News hosts going on about how roughly half of the American population doesn't pay federal income taxes. What's that? It's about 47% of people that don't make enough, that don't have enough to pay into the federal tax system. So which is it? Do they pay too much? Or do they not pay enough? You can't be saying both things at the same time. See, that's what I'm talking about with the whole pretzel thing. You really have to wrap your brain around it and go, wait a minute. You're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth. They don't have a coherent message. But not only that, taxes are actually lower than they've been over the past 30 years. That's right. According to the CBO, the average rate by all households, and that's all households in America, averaged is 17.4%. Now, of course, the rich, they tend to skew this a little bit. And not only that, but the poor as well. Speaking of the richest 1% pay on average of 28.9%. So once again, we're paying record low taxes. It doesn't exactly make sense what they're saying. So either taxes are too high or they're not. And another thing they said is, well, are young adults trying to avoid adulthood? By staying on President Obama's insurance. They're essentially being called kids. Well, she cited some examples, you can smoke at 18, you can drink at 21, you can join the military. Oh, but God forbid, you can actually stay on your parents' insurance. I don't know if you know this, but insurance for young people is still fairly expensive. And a lot of young people, a lot of millennials, actually can't afford insurance because they're not established in their careers. And I'll get to that. I'll get to a little bit about that later, but I just want to say that, like I said, they're not established in their careers, so they really don't have employee-sponsored insurance. Not only that, but a lot of employers don't really sponsor insurance anymore. So you're not really getting a whole lot from working. Like, a lot of millennials will actually, work at McDonald's or other lower wage places that don't offer benefits. So it makes sort of sense while you're working your way up and while you're working your way through school to be able to stay on your parents' insurance. But no. Fox News, Katie Pavlik, she's like, they're treating us like children. How dare they give us health care? I'm sorry, not health care. How dare they give us health insurance? How dare they give us cheap health insurance? Next, you're trying to force us to eat our broccoli. Oh, you don't think Fox News actually hasn't talked about eating broccoli? That was part of the Obamacare debate, too, where they would say, oh, what's next? With Obamacare, they're going to force you to eat broccoli. Big government. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, look, back to the question, do you think adults are avoiding adulthood by staying with their parents? No, of course not. There's not a lot of people who want to sit in their basement, their parents' basement, and not do anything. There's a few well-documented cases of that happening, yes, of course. But the majority of millennials, they don't want to live with your parents. Living with your parents, I imagine, has got to really suck. So, I can imagine that a lot of millennials don't want to live with their parents. But, so, barring that, so now that I'm basically established that fact, that a lot of millennials don't want to live with their parents, why are they still living with their parents? What are the real reasons behind this? Well, for one, you can look at wages. Now, wages have been stagnant. That's no surprise. Wages have been pretty much flat for the last 30 years. Degrees, they don't go nearly as far as they used to. And it, of course, depends on the field that you get into. But a lot of degrees, a lot of colleges have been flooded by an influx of people trying to escape the bad economy, trying to get marketable skills to get back in the workforce. And then you've got older people as well who have been displaced from their jobs, and they're getting retrained into new things. So now you've got lots of people graduating from college, Great for the college industry, especially for the for-profit college industry. But you have a glut of degrees and not enough jobs. Like I mentioned, you have 3 open jobs for every job seeker. Or I'm sorry, you have 3 job seekers for every open job that you have. That degree doesn't carry as much weight as it used to when all of your competition also has the same degree. So no, it's not because they're lazy. But that's what Fox News says. Now, you got to look at the Fox News audience to kind of understand why this resonates with them. The Fox News audience is, on average, about age 75. They're old people, okay? And they're old people, and you hear a lot of them be like, God, those lazy kids. I remember when I had to walk uphill in the snow to school with no shoes on. It's just that it's sort of that mentality that I worked harder than you. But when you look at production over the last 30 years, when you look at production, Americans are more productive than ever before. And yes, you've got technology, you've got computers now, you've got other things that also help. But that doesn't mean just because you have computers and technology that the people aren't working hard either. Millennials do work hard. They do a lot of things. So, and they're in a very, very competitive market environment. So no, it's not because they're lazy. And look, there's something, of course, that Johnson and Pavlik, they left out when it comes to how many people are living at home with their parents. They cited about 30% of all millennials live at home, right? Well, that's not entirely true. You see, according to the surveys where they get their information, in 2012, 39% of 18 to 24-year-olds were actually enrolled in college. Now, did you know that college dorms actually count as home as living at home in these surveys? Oh, they didn't tell you that now, did they? They conveniently left that little tidbit out. That's right. If you live in a college dorm, you are counted as living at home with your parents. So you may be out there getting a bachelor's degree, and you may have a part-time job to go along with that degree, but you're still counted as living at home. And you're the ones that, and you're lumped in with the people who actually do live in their parents' basements and don't want to work. Because there are those people. Those people exist. And the people that are actually out there getting an education to better themselves, to actually be competitive in the market, they're being counted in this. So, look, it just shows you that Fox News doesn't give you the whole story. When they start saying some facts, and yes, these facts are true, but they also leave out other ones. So you really have to watch out when you watch a segment on Fox News. You have to get the whole story. You have to see how this stuff is counted. And Fox News, they really count on their viewers to not research this stuff, to not look into this. And that's how they get you. That's how they misinform you. And so, once again, you've got higher unemployment adding to that, as well as higher college attendance. You've got more millennials going to school in order to avoid the recession and come out better trained with so they can get better jobs. And then you've also got more single people, millennials, that are holding off from getting married, holding off from pairing up until they have their career set. So really, while youth unemployment for millennials is pretty high, 16%, as Fox News pointed out, you've got varying reasons for this. And when you start to look at this, you realize that, yeah, it's not the millennials being lazy. It's not President Obama trying to buy votes. It's not the big government coming in and treating these people as if they're children. No, you've got a lot of different factors that are included in this. And it just so happens that people that are biased at Fox News tend to always leave that stuff out. So, like I said, it's not It's not that they're lazy. It's not that the government is trying to turn us into children for in order to get votes. They're not buying votes. It's just different factors. And you know what? That's why it's you really have to watch out where you get your news. You can't really even call Fox News news. So, anyway, I want to go into the next story here. I know you're going to probably enjoy this. I know I did. We're going to go into... Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a really, really quick break before you get into that second story. I promise I will be back in a minute. Just hold on. Watch out where you get... All right, back on TYT Nation. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We've got a couple more stories left for you today. Right now, having a lot of fun. And we're going to get into our really good Pope story. Now, this is a lot of fun. Boom. I know, really bad Photoshop. I do all this stuff myself. So, I kind of threw this together with not a lot of time. Hey, you know what? If you want better graphics, donate to our campaign and I can hire a graphics guy. But hey, you know what? I had a lot of fun making it, so that's what matters, is that you have fun. So, apparently, the Pope has been sneaking out at night. Out of the Vatican at night to do what? Well, he's sneaking out to help homeless people. Wow. So according to a report in the Huffington Post, Swiss guards have confirmed that the Pope has ventured out at night, dressed as a regular priest, to meet with homeless men and women. Now, how much do you like this Pope? I was a little iffy at first because I was used to Emperor Palpatine, Benedict. I was used to him, and I was like, oh man, that guy's horrible, right? So I was a little iffy on Francis, but now that he's been there for a while, kind of liking him. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm an atheist, and so I don't believe in God or anything like that. But this Pope has been really progressive. He's been actually caring about the poor, and this shows. Now, he's been sneaking out nightly with Archbishop Konrad Krajewski. Oh man, that's a tongue twister. Konrad Krajewski. And he sneaks out every night with him in order to visit with homeless people. Talk to them, try to help them. Basically humanize the homeless people. Which is great. And this is just another reason to actually like this Pope. I mean, he's not focused on gay people anymore. He's like, who am I to judge? Gay people, whatever. God probably loves them too. And he's not hung up on abortion either. He's really has focused on distancing himself from these topics. He's like, that shouldn't be our concern right now. Is it still a concern? Yes. Is it our concern right now? No, because we've got rampant wealth inequality going on. And that's really what he's been focusing on. But another thing to like him, another reason that I like him personally, is that he's more modest. He doesn't sit on a fucking golden throne, and he doesn't ride the Pope mobile. He doesn't wear the fancy robes. He's just going out as sort of a normal guy. He's keeping it simple. He's living the way that he's supposed to. I love that. But another reason that I actually like this Pope is that he's basically been warning people against the, quote, unfettered evils of capitalism. Or I should say evils of unfettered capitalism and wealth inequality. Now that's really, really important. And that's one of the most important issues that is going on today. We've got this massive, massive disparity between the rich and the poor, and he's actually going out and saying, look, that's wrong. We shouldn't have this wealth inequality. Much to the chagrin, of course, to a lot of conservatives here in America, but I'll get into that later. But the Pope is actually following the teachings of Jesus. And that's really, really important. A good example of that is the verse of Matthew 25:40. Now, of course, that says, quote, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Now, this reflects on his visits to the homeless people. He's actually treating these people like they're human beings. And that's really important because he's following that verse. He's treating the least of us with dignity and respect. And he's out there visiting them. And he's doing a good thing. And he's trying to look out for them. He's trying to help the homeless people. He's trying to get other people to help the homeless people. And that's actually Christian. That's actually what Christianity is supposed to be. So I really like that. And look, Christianity is designed for you to be like Christ. For you to follow the example of Christ. And to do good things for people. Now somehow, of course, religion gets... And this is one of the main problems I have as an atheist, is that religion gets perverted. And people use that in order, use the word of so-called God in order to pervert the teachings in order to amass their own power. And to, gain control over other people using this doctrine. That's why I'm generally not in favor of religion. But thankfully, the Pope is trying to actually bring it back to what it's supposed to be. Now, like I said, him sneaking out, it actually follows the verse of Matthew 5:2. Now, Matthew 5:2 says, when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Instead, give discreetly. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. That's exactly what he's doing. He's going out there under the cover of night to help people. And it was a secret until somebody spilled the beans. And it's unlike a lot of these other supposed Christians, especially like the ones that you see on TV, that will go out there and be like, I've helped this many people out today. And they'll have like a big board of like 1,000 people, and who knows if they really actually help them. But they'll go and say, we've helped so many people see Jesus. Well, yeah, well, did you help them by giving them a hot meal? Now, some of these Christian groups who actually do that stuff, bless their heart, right? I believe that's the saying. I'm a little uncomfortable saying that because I'm like, but bless their heart for doing that, and especially the ones that are okay with atheists as well, that to come in and volunteer. Now, there's a lot of church groups that don't care what you believe as long as you're there to help the poor. And that's keeping in line with Christianity, and that's also keeping in line with Matthew 6:2. Helping the poor without having to shout it from the rooftops of how awesome you are. But of course, not everybody is a fan of the Pope. Like I mentioned earlier, the Pope going out and saying and doing what he's been doing, especially about wealth inequality and the evils of unfettered capitalism, heads at Fox News were exploding. Exploding. Now, first, actually, was Rush Limbaugh. Now, I've got a clip from Rush Limbaugh that I'd definitely like you to listen to, and then we'll talk about it.
This that I came across last night, I mean, it totally befuddled me. If it weren't for capitalism, I don't know where the Catholic Church would be. But the Pope here has now gone beyond Catholicism here, and this is pure political. And I want to share with you some of this stuff. Pope Francis attacked unfettered capitalism as a new tyranny. He beseeched global leaders to fight poverty and growing inequality in a document on Tuesday setting out a platform for his papacy and calling for a renewal of the Catholic Church. In it, Pope Francis went further than previous comments, criticizing the global economic system, attacking the idolatry of money. Somebody has either written this for him or gotten to him. This is just pure Marxism coming out of the mouth of the Pope. There's no such unfettered capitalism. That doesn't exist anywhere.
I love that. I love that. Rush was befuddled. Oh my God. You're actually going and helping the poor? What kind of Christian are you? Now, what I left out of that, of course, soundbite, is that he actually went in to explain that, well, I'm not a Catholic or anything, but I thought about it. I mean, you guys hated the gays, and I'm totally down with that. And you guys don't like abortion, and I definitely like to say that I'm down with that. And so, that whole helping the poor thing, though, that kind of turns me off. And now that you're really spreading that, that's Marxism. Marxism. Now, I love how he instantly went to, you know what? Somebody must have got to him. It's a conspiracy. Somebody got to the Pope. He's not one of us anymore. He doesn't hate the same people that I do. What's wrong with you? You know what's wrong with him? You know who got to him? Jesus. Jesus got to him. The actual teachings of the Bible to take care of the poor and the sick and the elderly, that's what got to him. You're supposed to, look, the Bible says that you are supposed to give your shit to the poor, not take a shit on the poor. I think Rush had that a little bit confused. He's like, wait, you mean I'm not supposed to kick the poor while they're down? But I thought that's what it meant to be a good Christian. I mean, that's what all the other supposed good Christians are doing. No, that's not the point. No. So I love how he brings out the conspiracy theory of somebody must have got to him. It must have been someone from the New World Order. He's a liberal plant. And look, Sarah Palin was also out there saying, oh my God, that Pope, he's kind of liberal. Seems a little liberal. Yeah, well, wait till you hear about that Jesus guy. He might seem a little liberal to you. Now, he's not the only one, of course, that has been going after the Pope, right? Fox News, Stuart Varney. He says that the Pope is a neo-socialist. A neo-socialist. Jonathan Mosley of the Tea Party, he actually wrote for WorldNet Daily that, and you'll love this, apparently Jesus was a capitalist. I don't know if you know that. But according to Jonathan Mosley, Jesus is a capitalist. He said, Jesus was a capitalist preaching personal responsibility, not a socialist. Not a socialist. So wait a minute. Where's the parts in the Bible about Jesus' life that talked about free markets? Where's the part in the Bible? Show me the part in the Bible, Jonathan Mosley, where Jesus talks about tax cuts for the rich or environmental deregulation so that private industry can pollute. Show me the parts in the Bible where it talks about that. I don't think you can find any because it doesn't exist. No, the Bible talks about charity. And yes, charity is, conservatives love to run on charity. Right. They love to run on talking about charity, but not necessarily give to charity. Whereas poor people, they often give more of themselves to charity and to each other than do some of these rich conservatives. I'm not saying all liberals are charitable either. Don't get me wrong. People are people, and people will be dicks. But I'm saying as a general sort of rule, the more conservative you are, the more stingy you tend to be. I'm just saying. Now, if you are an actual Christian, then you are not stingy because you are helping the poor. So, like I said, find me those parts in the Bible where we talk about conservatism. I don't think you're going to find any. But I have a fantastic quote from Jonathan Mosley. Check this out. Now, he said in his World Net Daily article that Jesus Christ is weeping in heaven hearing Christians espouse a socialist philosophy that has created suffering and poverty around the world. It is impossible to love one's neighbor as yourself without fighting against socialism, meaning government meddling in private lives. Are you kidding me? Isn't God the most meddlesome person in the Bible? God who literally ordered, Cain to kill his brother? I don't know. I forget that part. I'm forgetting the names on some of these biblical stories, but especially in the Old Testament, you look at the Old Testament, God was a meddlesome motherfucker. He's all up in everybody's business. I seem to recall that he actually drowned them all. Now, for some people, they'll be like, yeah, but the Old Testament, that doesn't count. It's part of the Bible. It counts. If you can sit there and use Leviticus to hate gay people, then you're going to have to use the rest of it. You can't cherry pick the Bible. If it's supposedly the supposed divine word of God, then you can't cherry pick it. That always bothers me. I'm just going to take this part, and I'm going to take this part, hating the gays, and then I'm just going to invent the abortion thing, because nowhere does it actually say that you can't have abortion. There is actually abortion in the Bible, and it's caused by God. So, cherry picking, inventing shit, these conservatives are all up in the air, and now they're saying that Jesus is weeping because we're taking care of the poor. What planet do you live on? What planet do you live on, Jonathan Mosley? You must be living on Kolob with Mitt Romney. This is so dumb. Besides, if Jesus existed and if Jesus were here right now, he would slap the shit out of you. He would slap the shit out of Rush Limbaugh. He'd be like, what are you guys doing? I told you to take care of the poor, not to fuck the poor over. I told you to help people. I healed the sick. I died for your sins. And you're doing this? Like, this is the corruption that I think the Bible likes to talk about. This is the wickedness, the idolatry of money. And Francis is absolutely right on that. God, we worship, money has become God. And look, I'm not a religious person, but I can see that most people will worship money. Now, I don't worship anything. I don't believe in anything like that. But I see that people value money more than they do human lives. And that's a big problem. And that's what Francis also sees. He's like, boy, you know, they worship this so-called free market, which is actually an extractive system. There's no such thing as a free market. And, I mean, what it is that we don't have a free market, like I said. There's no such thing as a free market because it doesn't exist in reality. It's like a unicorn. You can't actually have a free market because a free market turns into a controlled market, whether it's controlled by government or controlled by a few private businesses. But look, I'm getting way off topic here. But I'm just saying that if you want to be like Jesus, follow Francis's lead. I mean, he may be the best thing that's happened to the Catholic Church in a long, long time. All right. Enough about Francis. Now I want to go over the story that I did yesterday that I had some tech issues with. So please bear with me. It's actually still a really good story, and I definitely want to hit it before I end tonight or today, this afternoon, whatever time it is. So I'm going to end, of course, with Congress. So, boom. 535 reasons why we can't have nice things. 535 reasons. So we know that the 113th Congress is actually the least productive Congress that we've had in modern history since after World War II. Well, how unproductive are they? Well, they're really unproductive. Do you know how many days that they take off compared to you? Well, this year, the House is only scheduled to work 8 days between now and January 7th. 8 days. How many days did they have off? They've had 239 days off this year, and next year they plan to have even more days off. Are you kidding me? They only plan to work 113 days next year. How many days do you work a year? How many days do I work a year? Compare that with how many days they work a year, or I should say how many days they don't work a year. It's kind of amazing because when you compare Congress versus a normal person gets on average 10 days off. Those 10 days aren't guaranteed. As we saw with Black Friday, with a lot of people who were working at Walmart and were working at Pizza Hut and other fast food places. It really depends on the area, of course, and the franchise, whatever, all the specific stuff. There's exceptions to pretty much everything, but there's a lot of people who actually had to work on Black Friday, or I'm sorry, on Thanksgiving. There's a lot of people that had to work that aren't given those days off, I should say. They're not guaranteed holidays off. Whereas Congress will take holidays and a lot of other days off. Now imagine if you worked as much as Congress did, or if you tried to tell your boss that you're going to take that much time off. What do you think would happen to you? You get fired. You'd have a pink slip waiting for you. Yeah, boss, I'm going to work 113 days next year. But, of course, I'm going to get paid. And the pay is really important, too, because you know how much an average congressman makes a year? $172,000. I'm sorry, $174,000. I always get that confused. $174,000 a year. The average American, and this is everything averaged out, $50,000 a year. In which most people actually make less than that and work more. So most people will get 10 days off and make a ton less, whereas Congress, they get 113 days off and they make a lot more. Now, this is not right. How is that at all representative of the people that they're supposed to represent? Well, it's not. It's bullshit. Now, it gets even worse when you actually kind of compare it to workers in Europe. Workers in Europe will actually get about 2 weeks off, 2-3 weeks. It depends on the country. And that's guaranteed. That's not maybe. It's guaranteed, set in stone, you're getting this time off. In America, we don't do that. We say you come and work, and you like it. Hey, you come to work, you work for slave wages, and then we, maybe out of the kindness of our hearts, we'll give you a holiday off. Oops, never mind, we need to open on Thanksgiving. Bullshit. So, with that established, let's go into some of the things that they have to get done. Because Congress does have a job to do, by the way, and they've got a lot of things that are looming on the horizon that they need to get done before the end of the year. So what do they need to get done? Well, for one, they need to pass a fucking budget. Okay? Remember the last budget deal that we had? That we shut the government down for? That expires on January 15th. That expires. So we could be facing another government shutdown. Now, that's not very likely because Republicans aren't that dumb. Okay, well, some of them are. But not even Ted Cruz is trying to shut down the government angle anymore. He knows that that's never going to work, that was an absolute abject failure. So, nonetheless, despite that, you still have a budget agreement to hammer out before January 15th. And of course, these budget talks will consist of things like, I don't know, Social Security, entitlements. Of course, you know the Republicans are going to say, we want to cut entitlements, and the Democrats are going to say no, except for Obama. Obama's going to say yes, because Obama says yes to almost everything the Republicans do. So-called liberal. But besides the budget thing, there's also other things that need to get done. That's, of course, one of them has to do with appointments. Now, presidential appointments. Now, remember, we had this whole filibuster thing when Harry Reid changed the rules to allow for appointments from President Obama. President Obama was basically getting blocked on every appointment that he made. There was a few that would squeak by, but most of the time, filibuster, block. Well, one of those was Janet Yellen. Now that they can't filibuster that, Janet Yellen can now get an up or down vote. But she has to get scheduled before the end of the year. So that's one order of business that Congress absolutely has to do. What else? Well, they still have to get the Farm Bill through. Yes, you thought we were done with the Farm Bill, but we're not. And especially, we're not even done with the food stamp portion as well. Now, remember, the food stamp is now separate from the Farm Bill in an unprecedented dick move by the Republicans to say that, well, we care more about giving giant subsidies to agriculture companies than we do about feeding poor people. So we're going to separate that out because we're going to vote to give those subsidies to farmers. Well, not just... See, when people think about farm subsidies, they actually think about the regular farmer in the field, right? Well, that's not really who gets all those subsidies. It's actually big farms. Big agriculture, that's who gets a lot of these subsidies. And so that's why they separated it out, because they want to get that passed. Republicans say, we want to give money to corporations, but we don't want to give money to the poor. No, what we want to do is we actually want to cut food stamps to the poor. And so that's why they haven't really agreed on passing neither the Farm Bill or the food stamp bill, because they can't agree. A lot of Democrats don't want to just give out these subsidies without including food stamps in them, And Republicans also, of course they want to pass the subsidies, but they don't want to give poor people food stamps. So they're kind of at an impasse. And they've got to get the shit together before and come up with a compromise that doesn't starve a bunch of poor people before the end of the year. Now, how likely is that? Not very likely. Another part about the Farm Bill, too, is that if certain subsidies don't get into place for like things like dairy, we could see a price shock in milk. Now, imagine like having to, spend $5, $6, $7 for a gallon of milk. Well, that's one of the effects that could happen if they don't actually come to some sort of agreement. So, I'm just letting you know that. And there's something called the doc fix that they also have to pass. Now, the doc fix, of course, has to do with paying providers of Medicare. Now, very important if you're on Medicare. And I'm sure that's something that Republicans don't really give two shits about. So, there's a lot of things that are really important that the Republicans really don't give a crap. So, they're dragging their feet. But they've got to get it done by the end of the year, or it's going to hurt a lot of people. Now, like I said, Congress has been super lazy compared to poor people, but that doesn't mean that they haven't gone out of their way to blame poor people for it. Well, of course. But what's kind of funny is that according to congressional records, there have actually been fewer than 60 public laws enacted in the first 11 months of the year. You poor people are lazy moochers. But we just passed less than 60 laws this year. Well, John Boehner actually has a response to that sort of thing, to that whole line of rhetoric. So let's listen to that.
Any way you cut it, and whoever's fault it is, you have presided over what is perhaps the least productive and certainly one of the least popular Congresses in history. How do you feel about that?
Well, Bob, we should not be judged on how many new laws we create. We ought to be judged on how many laws that we repeal. We deal with what the American people want us to deal with. Unpopular, yes. Why? We're in a divided government. We're fighting for what we believe in.
No, John, you're unpopular because you're a dick. You're unpopular because your party blocks everything. You're unpopular because despite the low numbers for Obamacare, okay, people are generally not in favor of Obamacare. They still don't want you wasting their time and your time, their money, on trying to repeal it 44 times. That's kind of, makes sense, right? I don't want them wasting all that money to repeal a law that's not going to be repealed. But they continue to try and do it anyway. And not only that, but he's like, well, we shouldn't be judged on what we do. We shouldn't be judged on actually working. No, we should be judged on how much we can tear down the government that we don't like. You like government, which was shown actually during the shutdown when people were pissed that the government was closed. But John Boehner's like, no, we should be judged on how well we tear down the system instead of build it up. We don't need new laws. We don't need equal pay for women. That was one of the bills that they're going to try to go through. We don't need a minimum wage law. We don't need an increase. What we do need is we need a tax decrease on the rich. That's a great idea. We should do that immediately. But first, we got to get rid of that Obamacare, and we got to pass some anti-abortion bills. Look, that's the majority of things that they do, that they've done in the 113th Congress. They've done squat to help the American people. It's just been nothing but obstruction. Now, going back to Harry Reid, he went nuclear to stop some of the obstruction. Now, like I said, he didn't change the filibuster rules on regular stuff, but they changed it on appointments. Now, Harry Reid actually went on a radio interview, and he was asked if that recent deal, that recent rules change in the Senate to get rid of the appointments filibuster will actually lead to actually less stuff getting done. And I love his response. He says, more dysfunction? I mean, gee whiz. Yeah, he's basically saying, look, I've been obstructed for the last 5 years almost nonstop by these guys, by these assholes. I've tried to work with them. I've tried to create comity, which ended up more being like comedy. I've tried to work with these guys, and these guys are just dicks. Every deal that I try to make with them, they renege on it. So yeah, I'm going to go nuclear. No, this isn't really going to help, because it's going to help for appointments, sure. But when it comes to regular stuff, they're still going to get blocked. So, like I said, I don't see anything getting done by the end of the year. So, look, it will help a little bit, but tick-tock, guys. The times are coming. The year's coming to a close. And there's some very important things on their table to do. Now, like I said, I don't think they're going to do it, but they should. They should do their job. What are we paying them for? Remember, they're supposed to serve us, but they actually serve the corporations more. They serve the corporations. They serve the rich. They do not serve us, and yet we still pay them. And look, that right there, those reasons right there that I just laid out, that is why we cannot have nice things. All right. It's already been an hour. Wow. All right. Thank you for sticking with me through this hour. It's been a ton of fun. Love these stories. Of course, you can catch me tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube. I'll post the links up on my Facebook page and my Twitter. Of course, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYT Nation. YouTube, of course, twitter.com/Jeff's Politics or @Jeff's Politics. I always mess up on my plugs. Apologize for that. And of course, you can go to our channel at youtube.com/TYT Nation. We post all of the clips up there, as well as the stuff that you send us, you guys, because you guys can send in your clips to TYT Nation. We'll post them about things that you care about. And this show is also basically, the show is here for you also to send in your ideas about what you care about, and I will present them. And that's what I want to do. So send us your story ideas, what's important to you, what matters to you, and I will make sure to cover them here on this show, as well as on the panels on Thursday and Friday. So with all the plugs out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.